Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Gut Shot podcast. Today, we're going to have a very American-centric episode. I am Shamsul Sam, your host, and with me is my friend from New York, Professor James Kenny, the host of the Unaffiliated two-way post-morning show program, and professor at the College of Staten Island in New York. In New York, Professor Kenny, how are you, Prof?
I'm doing good, Sam. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. So this is going to be a conversation, mostly the way we're going to do it. And we go back and forth and see, especially what is going on at the moment in America. Let me put it this way. I think let's firstly address the elephant in the room, which is the shutdown that has recently about to be opened back again for the government. I think, in my opinion, actually, it's almost like a waste of time. If you ask me, I don't know what you think about it. What do you? I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, it's a waste of time. But we all knew this. The problem going into the shutdown, and it was before these recent elections, was that the Democrats were really on their heels. And, they don't have this at all. They don't have the House. They don't have the Senate. They don't have the presidency. They don't have the Supreme Court. And they feel like they're getting beat on every issue. So when it came to the shutdown, the continuing resolution to fund the government, which, by the way, was the same Joe Biden continuing resolution that they all agreed upon in the past, right?
Yeah.
So they had to be performative to show their constituents that they're fighters because they were being treated as if they're not fighters and they're weak. So they found their issue and that was the Obamacare subsidies, which in the end, we all knew that there would be a discussion on that, and we also all knew that shutting down the government, they were not going to win anything. So, as you could see yesterday, they got 8 senators to capitulate and agree to the continuing resolution, and then with an understanding there'll be a discussion about healthcare subsidies down the road. So, in the end, the Democrats took snatched defeat out of the jaws of victory, as we like to say in America.
I really, yeah, I think they played it as best they could, but at the end of the day, I agree with you. It was inevitable. The only question was actually how each party is going to come out looking from the whole shutdown. I mean, I thought
and big pushback already on the Democrats from their base, their liberal base, like the mainstream media, all pushing back. Last night, Jon Stewart and Colbert, I guess it was, they all just went after the Dems for caving. Of course, not caring that people aren't getting their SNAP benefits or that air traffic controllers are not getting paid. They didn't care about that. But, so yeah, so the Democrats lose again.
I really don't. But having said about that, I want our conversation with this whole idea. I mean, with what has transpired within the last week, actually, more than anything, which is I mean the wins by the Democrat in the special elections. We're talking about the New Jersey gubernatorial, I believe, the Virginia elections. And I think there's some also some post in Georgia as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, there was two I think state electors that turned Democrat. But we have to understand, and by the way, it was a very big night for the Dems. We can't take that away from them. As I'm a Republican. I'm not a Trumper, but I support President Trump. But for the Republicans, they, all politics is local. So it all comes down to getting out your base in election with on the ballot. And then it's also about who are your candidates. If we look at the governor's race for New Jersey, right? Jack Ciattarelli was the Republican candidate, and Mikey Sherrill was the Democratic candidate, and she won. She won big. Now she's a congresswoman, and she's also a military helicopter pilot.
Mm-hmm.
So she has a nice resume. Jack, this is the third time he ran for governor, and this is the third time he lost. So he came close his second time, but not close enough. And we have to remember the blue state, where the concern is who voted for Mikey Sherrill, and a large Hispanic vote came out for Mikey Sherrill, and the African American vote came out for Sherrill. So if we look at what Trump did in 2024, he basically his black vote, and Hispanic vote was very strong for Trump. So all of those gains under Trump kind of got wiped away, and that's a concern for Republicans.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think one of the concern, I mean, for me, maybe if some of our American audience may be wondering why somebody from Kuala Lumpur is so interested in the American political situation, it's very much pro-business, the pro-business uh, policies, in my opinion. That I do a lot of business with American associates and all that, and a good business environment for America and a healthy economy for America is extremely good for the global business community. So that's basically why we are so interested. What happens in America affects us a lot,
Yeah.
So people in the US may not understand that, but that's the reality of the world that we live in. So when that happens, what I was looking at is how do we? I mean, what are we looking at? Are we looking at, because the loss to the Democrat is a lot bigger than we expected, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, how concerned are you as a Republican when you look at that, at this trend? How do you now towards, the midterms, for example, especially,
Yeah.
towards the midterm?
Yeah. I'm very concerned because I know how good our candidates are going to be. And I don't know if Trump is going to be able to adjust politically to the climate in America. For example, um, these ICE raids are obviously not popular, and he's doubling down on them. The most recent interviews he's done, he's been asked about the big issue, which is now affordability, right? So that's how Zoran Mandami became mayor of New York City, right? He ran on this idea of affordability, meaning everything is too expensive in America to live, right? We're not making enough money to buy a house. We can't buy houses anymore. Our groceries are too expensive. So the problem with Trump is he's pushing back on that, and he's presenting numbers. He's like, look, gas prices are down, and he says food costs are down, which is debatable, and he calls it a democratic hoax. That's a very big problem because this is the same argument that Joe Biden made, that when people were complaining about the economy under him, he was saying, that's it's false. People are feeling pain in their wallet. That's what they feel, and they're expressing that box. So
Mm.
Trump has got to figure out a way to A, make things more affordable, or B, make people feel like things are more affordable. You can't just dismiss it as a democratic hoax. So,
Yeah, my thoughts are, I don't know I've expressed on the post morning show or not, but I've always thought to a certain extent that all the work that he's doing as soon as he came into office will actually, I mean, for example, bringing down the price of gas, bringing and dismantling regulation, bringing in investments. I've seen that happen already. The problem is actually, I felt that, and even the tariffs, I am very supportive of the tariff, actually, to be honest. I mean, it may sound weird, but I've explained before why the tariffs is a negotiation that at the end of the day you have an import tax that has to be competitive for importers. So I think at the end of it, I think what actually I felt was he ought to have done before he came in. This may not be good politics though, which actually to tell the American people that, look, we're going to have to sacrifice a bit to start off with, because you only see results, to be honest, after 16 to 18 months, you know? So,
Yeah.
the fact that you got, at least from the data, you have a lower than 3% inflation rate, a GDP that is higher than forecasted, already was a surprise to me. So I think from my standpoint, I think from the messaging is also is a problem, if you ask.
100%.
Well,
The Republicans and Trump's team are terrible at messaging. They did a bad job with Doge. They did a bad job with these trade deals. You know, the American people still don't understand these trade deals because they're not being explained to them. You know, Trump just, well, we've made seven, you know, we've made whatever. Well, what does that mean for us? And he doesn't come out and say, listen, I've made all of these trade deals. I've changed the global climate into the trading for in America's favor. It's just not going to happen overnight, and you have to be patient. And he doesn't message that way. You know, so what he's trying to do now is he's offering, which I've been saying all along he's going to do. He's saying, look, these tariffs are bringing in so much money. I'm going to give everybody $2,000. That's his new. Since this election last week thing now is I'm going to give everybody a stimulus of $2,000. The way it's going to be though, it's going to be like part of your tax return. Which, by the way, in the big beautiful bill, the tax return for middle class Americans is huge. It's great. You know, everybody that's like to argue, oh, a tax cut for the rich. No, it's a tax cut for middle class Americans as well. You know, so but they have to message and they're terrible at messaging. And when you're Trump, you call everything a hoax. You know, and they see what's on TV and see what's on the internet. You know, and if they see people complaining about you know, like the ICE raids are a big thing. You know, sending in the National Guard into cities is a big thing. People don't like it. You know, he did fine with Washington, D.C. That's great. But then to extend it to other cities, I don't understand why he does that. I think he should just, especially that he's sending them into blue cities. So just let the blue cities hang themselves, you know, just keep messaging Chicago. You know, here's our, on Monday morning, say, here's our update on Chicago. 40 more people were murdered. You know what I mean? Just keep putting that out there every week. And you know, to message that way, you don't need to send a National Guard in there. But the problem is ICE is getting a lot of pushback. That's why he's sending in the guard. And you know, listen, that whole immigration thing is a real problem for
you
America.
really think so? You really think so? I thought that,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking from outside in. I was in DC actually when the National Guards were made into DC. I honestly, I don't know where they were. I only saw one military presence near the monument. But other than that, I didn't feel anything different, to be honest. So I enjoyed my 1 week in the DC. Yeah. But I agree with you. I don't know if is an issue that you hear from domestically, then that is a concern. But I think from an economic standpoint, I think messaging Trump's administration is facing a wall because like it or not, the mainstream media is very much on the side of the Democrats, and the
Yes.
message is not coming through. If you ask me,
Right.
the
Right.
message is not.
100%.
Yeah. So
And like go ahead. Well, I was just gonna say the for example, with the shutdown, the big message from Republicans was we're not going, you know, the Democrats shut down the government because they want illegal immigrants to get health care. That was their message, right, during the shutdown. Well, the media then the says, well, that's not really true. Only X percent, you know, 2%, 3% of illegals are get health care, whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? So that message that the Republicans live on becomes antiseptic over time, and then it goes on deaf ears. So you
Yeah.
need a different message. You just need to the best message was, listen, this is a political ploy, and just hammer home, video after video of all of these Democrats saying how in the past saying how government shutdowns are bad, and you know what I mean. Like you have Schumer and Pelosi and all these people saying we should never shut down the government. Well, just keep playing that 24/7. Don't worry about the getting health care. When it's like it's you got a message, and they didn't. And plus, another thing is they didn't stay in D.C. A lot of them went home. So
Yeah.
that's not a good look.
That was a big thing with Sean Spicer on the way program.
Yeah,
He was
yeah,
very unhappy about that. So I
yeah,
mean, so if you look at it, right, I think we've got a messaging problem as far as the Republicans are concerned. I think we also have, if you ask me, when I looked at it, the candidates' performance were not good, or the ground game probably is not good as well. Would you agree with that, or do you think and that is a concern if you think about it from the point of view of you've only got basically the Virginia, the New York mayoral race. I will give it one thing. I mean, they've got a charismatic candidate, but and it's a Democrat city. The Democrats. It's a gone game anyway, right, Prof?
yeah. So New York City, if we break it down, it's kind of simple. Most of the that live in New York City aren't native New Yorkers, right? So they're not born and raised in New York, you know. So you have a city that is like we say about America, a melting pot, right? You got all different kinds of religions, ethnicities, and Zoran Mandami's message about affordability. First of all, he's an excellent politician. He started out with his first video was about a food truck,
Yeah, I
you
saw
know.
that one.
So
Yeah.
that was a good message about, like, do you want to pay $15 or $10 at your food truck, that kind of thing. So it was a good message. Here's the big problem: the Democrats ran Cuomo, right? Yeah, Eric
Yeah.
Adams is the mayor who's a failed mayor, right?
Yeah.
Then you have Cuomo, the failed governor, didn't get to finish his governorship, and had a huge problem with COVID, and people in nursing homes and all of this. And then you got this young guy, Mandami. So you have three lousy candidates, but one of them's charismatic and young. So in New York City, young people are going, they're about, if this, what guy's nationality is or whatever. He's talking about free buses, and he's young and he's exciting, and that's where the vote goes. And plus, they're not going to vote for Cuomo. They're not going to vote for the Republican Curtis Sliwa, because
Yeah.
nobody votes Republican. So there was no way that the pushback on Mandami was gonna happen, because then what happens is Cuomo loses primary and then runs as an independent. You don't
Independent.
change your candidate. So
Yeah.
what makes you think he's gonna win? So
So that was that's a gone case for, I mean, the margins that
and
that
and
he
polling shows across the nation a Zoran Mandami would never, nationally carry. And it just like an AOC or a Bernie, they don't, these progressives, they don't poll well nationally. So,
really.
yeah.
Okay. No, I mean, that comes off to the next jumping point, that actually looking at it from going into the midterms and then the 2028. I sort of like, if you were to ask me today, who is the most charismatic, or who would I pick to run for the next presidential term? I'm looking at Newsom and AOC. I don't know what you think about it, and I mean, I thought the same thing. I thought AOC cannot cross state lines, but I'm not sure anymore. I mean, Newsom,
Yeah.
if you look at Newsom, I mean, he's carrying a lot of baggage from, I
Yes.
mean, being the governor of California, with a lot of companies fleeing the state. You've got loads of regulatory problems, but I find it's almost like looking at me and saying he's achieved nothing. He's done nothing. And yet he seemed to be, whether that will carry Newsom along, I'm not sure. I don't know.
I think where Newsom is going to have a problem is with the Democrats when they start doing primaries, depending on who else runs. With Newsom is very charismatic. He's a good-looking guy. He's good on his podcast, but he's the governor of California. When he came in as the governor of California, California's operating budget was at a surplus. They are now 68 billion in debt, and he's still trying to borrow money. They can't put out any fires. They have a problem with their water system. They have the worst immigration policy and problem in the whole United States. Now they always say, well, you know, California's got the fourth highest GDP in the world or whatever. It's like, yeah, but you're not building new. You haven't had a new oil refinery in God knows how many years, you know, 30, 40 years. You haven't, you know, done anything to grow. You know, you just had big tech there, and like you, Sam, companies left. Look at Elon Musk; he up and got out of there. So I think what would happen to Newsom is, though he's a good political athlete, I think somebody on the Democratic Party would you know they would just expose his record as governor of California, and then he'd be toast.
Why do you think? Why do you think AOC will not be able to actually?
She's very left wing, and I don't think that plays well. It's the nation. Now, she's an attractive, exciting young woman. So I think, you know, she can get some juice going. Let's say, for example, if Newsom got through the right, and let's say he becomes the Democratic nominee, I think AOC would be a good vice presidential choice because
That's what I'm
you want to
thinking.
yeah, you would want to lock up that progressive wing of the Democratic Party. So that would be good. But as a wholesale candidate, plus if anybody's ever watched AOC in Congress, she has a lot of problems. She speaks. She gets trip time. So um, you know, but listen, the figure out there that, you know, listen, anybody following Donald Trump is going to have a huge problem. Like, how does JD Vance, you know, he's going to have to come out and say what he doesn't agree with Trump on, right? Because he can't play the Kamala line and say, oh, I wouldn't change anything. You'd have to say what you'd change. And we got a problem on the right too, because you have these MAGA or even ultra right wing like this Fuentes, who's got problems in the Republican Party. You know, you have to deal with that. And if you embrace these Fuentes people, then, you know, don't want to kick anybody out. You know, there comes a time when you have to say no to certain people because their ideology is just not American.
I was gonna go there. I was gonna go there, but let me finish out your thoughts on the midterms first. Do you think that the Republicans are gonna lose the House when the midterms
I
come around?
I I think they're running out of time
Mm.
to hold on to the House, meaning when Trump gives his his State of the
State of
Union
the
in January, he better be able to show that prices are literally coming down and that the American people are starting to feel good. Now, I keep telling everybody, wait till people get their stimulus check and wait till they do their taxes and they realize they got a lot more money in their pocket. That's help him. It's
which
going to help him in a big
when would
way.
that be approximately?
That's usually, you know, April, May, June. But that's like I would say June 1st is the cutoff point. Then we'll know exactly if the country turned back to Trump and say, you know what, Trump's actually doing a good job. And he's shown
Ah,
us that these trade deals are good. Then I think the Republicans can do well. But the problem, like I said, Sam, is it's also about who's the candidate, the ground game. Right now, the Republicans have a lot of money, a lot more money than the Democrats. But look what just happened.
Yeah.
But the Republicans were smart enough to know that these governorships, which were basically blue states, people call Virginia a purple state. It's really a blue state. They weren't going to win, so they didn't dump money in there. They didn't waste any money in there. So they know that. Trump's inner circle, inner ground game is good. His polling is excellent. It's just that I just think he served well by some of his advisors because you could see Trump's face after that night of the elections. He looked like, he looked like he was surprised that somebody lied to him and didn't truth. That the way we're going to
Really?
get our asses whipped in these elections. So,
Well, I thought I mean maybe New Jersey is a possibility. I didn't think so. I mean I agree with you. No point to dump money in a place that you're not gonna win. What's the point, right? If you ask me right now, I would say I agree with you that June is the cutoff point because I mean from a business standpoint, we always know what the if you implement a policy so he comes in, even with hitting the ground running the way the cabinet has done, which has been quite amazing. If you ask me, looking from the outside in, it is still going to take June up to, I mean, June is already an extremely good indicator of when things should be felt at ground at the people's level, if you ask me, right? I was telling my then co-host Chuang, I'm actually quite surprised that the GDP growth or the inflation rate were not, the GDP growth was that high. I was looking at 3.1, 3.2. It went up to, it was at 3.8. I expected the job numbers to be even worse, to be honest, because, when you let go of people from the federal government side and
yeah,
whatnot, yeah, I expected also inflation to actually be a bit higher because the tariff starts out high. But I've always recognized that the way he has handled the tariff as a businessman, I was remarkable. If you were to ask me, I don't want to go into detail. I've already spoken about it quite at length on my other on the previous podcasts. But so June is cut off. Let's say so, and that's what I see. Actually, if even for the next term, 2028, whatever Trump has done in this term is gonna make it whether it's gonna be the real reason why you hold the House, and then also 2028 election whether you're gonna keep the presidency, right?
yeah,
Because if you if
yes,
you if you screw up the with all that you've done now, there's no way that but JD, if he's the nominee, to say that he's not part of it. It's got to be back to
right,
what Kamala had to deal with.
right. No, you're 100% right. And that's why the problem is it's unfortunate that this Trump wasn't the first Trump and we didn't have COVID. You know what I'm saying? Because then you could roll him into a second term. You know what I mean? So in other words, if Trump had another term coming and he was younger and all of the things he's doing now, you eventually the things he's doing would start the United States would start reaping if it's feeling the benefits back, right? Because it takes time. With America is our electorate is we're so divided and we're so fed up with the government that we want an instant fix. We don't have patience. So when people say, "Look, Trump, you were gonna lower prices. The prices aren't coming down. You're out." He hasn't been president. He just got elected a year ago, right? He hasn't taken office. January 20th is when he took office, right? So we're not even a year into his presidency, and people are already like, "Get out of here," So the American electorate is very fickle and uneducated in many ways, and it's a problem. It's a big
Well,
time problem.
well, I think the other big problem that this administration has is that the mainstream media, you take out Fox, which is a cable news, it's all against him. So the messaging, he's got such a win against the messaging that they must find a way out of that, and get what is actually they are doing. I don't think they've done the messaging in terms of translating what they are doing, and when you should be able to reap the benefit of it. It's not quite as good as what it should be, if you were to ask me. Yeah. So anyway, Prof. Anyway, I mean, since we've unpacked that, there is the point that you made about other part that is going to be crucial for the coming elections and whatnot. Is this what seems to be now is a few outlets has been calling the civil war within the Republican Party, right? You've got I think that actually when I look at it, you mentioned the name Nick Fuentes and the big hoo-ha about him being platformed by Tucker Carlson, right? I've heard your opinion of it on our last Zoom call in on the post-morning show. I took the time and just that 2-hour podcast, between Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes. And actually, I came out with I don't know whether, tell me whether you agree or how. Let's talk about it, right? What I actually, it's no doubt there's a white nationalist thinking in Fuentes. And I think that's a backlash to the to the far left narrative of anti-whiteness, so to speak, right? This is what I saw. But it is so, but I also understand that from the way I look at it, why, if you were to ask me, why Tucker didn't really go that hard on Fuentes, because they were basically on the same camp with respect to foreign policy, which is a first. And actually, the other thing that has always been a bother for this America First crowd is what they would adopt as being whatever Israel is or whatever Israel wants to do, it's have to follow, and they're not on with that, And I think that, if you ask me, the overall picture, I think that is the overall big picture on the foreign policy front from this MAGA first, America first kind of thinking. The white nationalist part of it, I would rather put it aside, to be honest, because I think that is a small issue. It's like, you know what? It's like Bill Maher platforming Cornel West or Sharpton on his show, because they are all out when they come and talk about what I would call anti-white rhetoric. So anyway, that's where I come from. There is a big what do you call this? A big within the pro-Israel faction and the America First faction. What do you think, Prof?
Yeah, it's a problem. Daryl on our post show, right? Daryl's anti-Israel. And he's like a Nick Fuentes. He's not a total Nick Fuentes guy, but he understands Nick Fuentes. And I am not of that. So I am pro-Israel. I always have been. And I'm German. I'm Irish and German. I just don't think people understand the history there. Last night we talked about it a little bit on Alan's post show. If people have a problem with Israel, then be specific. What is your problem with Israel? If you say, well, Israel's always been trying to expand their land, all right, that's a legitimate right. And then make that argument, and as Americans, if we say, you know what, Israel, you're going a little too far, then that's a fair argument, could probably come to an understanding on. But what I see in this anti-Israel movement behind it is really anti-Semitism. That's what I see. 1933 stirring up all over again. When I saw Fuentes on Tucker Carlson, and him and Tucker are both going, what do we need Israel for? They give, well, you know nothing about history and you know nothing about geography. Look where Israel sits in the world, surrounded by all of these Arab countries. They are our number one ally. and strategically, just where they're located for us is everything. And then let me bring up a little thing: Gaza and Hamas and the
Sure.
Palestinians.
Right.
People say, "Oh, look what Israel's doing to the Palestinians." All right, how come Jordan, Syria, Egypt? How about nobody wants to have anything to do with the Palestinian people? They've never proven the Arab Saudis, the Arab countries have treated the Palestinians worse than Israel ever could. And then Hamas, a Tehran-backed terrorist organization, takes advantage of these poor people in Palestine, the Palestinians in Gaza, and then commits war on Israel to provoke them, to provoke a response so that it becomes Israel's problem and it's Israel's genocide on the Palestinians when none of these Arab countries come to their aid at all. It's a disgrace. And, the response that Israel had to October 7th, I think was more than I think it was appropriately proportional in the sense that how many times is Israel going to get attacked by these people? If you leave Israel alone, they're going to leave you alone. Now, if there's expansion going on and we don't like it, then fine. Let's deal with that. Let's put a nail in the coffin on that. So this way, any of these Middle Eastern countries say, look. They can no longer say, we fear Israel because look, we say, no, there's no more expansion in Israel. You know what I mean? Leave Israel alone, we'll leave you alone. But it's in America, my frustration is the real anti-Israel movement is a youth movement that doesn't understand history. They don't know 1933. They don't know Nazi Germany. It's so far removed from them, and they don't learn it in school anymore. So for me, it's a problem.
I mean, I've said this before. I think in the sense that Egypt has a higher wall, to ensure that the Palestinians don't go into Egypt. Well, in fact, I think so. I'm trying to figure. Hamas knew exactly what they were doing when they went with October 7th. What they were doing was basically exactly what they expected to happen, which is they got that kind of response and they hit for what I call in the West. I don't know who I got this from. They call it suicidal empathy, So, but I think actually, if you ask me, I think Trump has played his cards as best he could with all the Arab countries, come up with an accord in Sharm el-Sheikh. The thing now is to implement it. And the thing that I find, and I come back to the domestic issue with coalition, is actually, I think, making the younger people understand that the interests of America in terms of its global commerce situation that makes you rich, that makes you be able to actually become the economic power that you are with only about what? How many people? 300 plus, 340, 200, 350 million people,
Yep.
right? And as the biggest economy in the world is because you are able to make the whole globe relatively safe for commerce, right? That's why you're so rich, So I think that is the messaging that is not coming through. That's number one. I don't know the other thing, Prof, I wanted to talk to you about, because I saw that when we were talking about the Fuentes thing last night, is when I saw how Tucker and Ben Shapiro went on Megyn Kelly's show there, right? And calling Tucker Carlson, I don't know whether you agree, but I would say this: calling Tucker Carlson anti-Semite is not right. I think when you do such things, when I listen to that 2-hour podcast, and I can see, I don't think Tucker is an anti-Semite. He just doesn't agree with, what's going on in Gaza and whatnot. But then you talk policy, right? But the reaction coming from the pro-Israel side of the coalition is if you disagree with Israel, you're an anti-Semite. I think that's problematic if you ask me. There
Yeah,
has
well,
to be
that's been
more
the debate, but
nuance.
I see Sam, I personally believe that. I believe that a lot of this, it's not anti-Israel and then anti-Semitism. No, it's Semitism rolled up into anti-Israel. That's the way I look at it. When I hear like a Daryl, which is a great example on our shows, right? Just he just puts down the Jews left and right, and then he tries to say he's not anti-Semitic. Every word out of his mouth is anti-Semitic, and if, like I said, if you want to criticize Israel, then criticize the government, criticize Netanyahu, criticize their expansion. But these people were invaded October 7th. Mothers and children were taken and murdered. And yet they're getting treated like they're the genocidal people. It's not fair. It's not right. And in terms of the way America plays it, like I said, the youth of America doesn't understand history, and they look at, they watch the news and they see these, pictures of Gaza, which looks like, it looks like the Holocaust. It looks like
It's a
dystopian
war
world
zone.
because it's so right. It's rubble, and they say, look what Israel did. But yet, when Hamas is returning the dead, what do? A whole parade. They shoot their guns in the air. All of this stuff. It's just utterly ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I understand an anti-Israel movement without, like I said, without being specific. When they say, "Well, I'm anti-specific," when you're not specific, that's to this anti-Semitism stuff. And by the way, these Fuentes guys and Tucker Carlson, they all hide behind, well, one of my best friends is Jewish. Yeah, but
That
that
was
that
funny though.
that doesn't excuse your rhetoric against the Jewish people,
Oh,
so
well,
I mean, listen,
that was
this
so
Fuentes,
classic, isn't
yeah, this
it?
Fuentes guy, the things he said about the Jews is just it's yeah,
Well,
it's
I agree with you on this Fuentes guy on how he has framed the discussion. He's much. I mean, I come out of it and I'm quite certain. I said, okay, that's a white nationalist position, right? That's a Jew position in terms of how he looks at the world. All right, I can argue with that. To be honest with you, I looked at it. I said, if I was sitting with him, and I was in that discussion, I would push back and say, look, why are you thinking this way? Why are you not looking at it from, this kind of way instead? But Tucker did nothing of that sort from that standpoint. But the only thing I would say that from Tucker's standpoint is he's also coming from a biblical, and I'm taking him at his word, right? Which is, this is how I separate the two. When I look at why I give Tucker the benefit of the doubt is basically said that he accepts that the Jewish people, biblical standpoint, are honored, are people that are honored by God. So in that sense, he doesn't come as an anti-Semite because he's already given them that position purely from a Christian standpoint. But Fuentes, on hand, and this is the thing that I think, I don't know, because you're the Republican here. I'm looking at it from the outside lens. I'm asking, I look at a young, just like you say, this is a youth problem, right? They don't know history, okay?
yep.
But you've got a guy here, and especially with the loss of Charlie Kirk, I thought the loss of Charlie Kirk is huge for the movement, because he's so articulate. He knows how to merge these two together, and I think there's the loss there. So you've got this young guy who, like we said, that particular he's not even 30, my friend.
No, and
Yeah.
he's never had sex. He's never had sex. Right? No,
Okay.
seriously. I'm telling you, I raised
know.
this issue yesterday. I don't trust anybody who's not interested in having sex. You know what I'm saying? Seriously. I mean, you're going to tell me about life and you've never had sex? I think what Nick Fuentes' problem is he's never had a woman would want to be with him. and which leads me to think he might not be into women. I don't know. But that's fine with me. And then enjoy a man. Like stop incel this celibacy bullshit. They're all listen, these people are I think that there was a great on New York Times that Josh Johnson sent me, and it was like they started it was the title, and that was the whole Nick Fuentes thing. Is like everything he went against was because somebody challenged him on something, and so his motivation was, well, you started it first, so now I'm coming back at you.
Don't you think that
Like
is
if you
very
think
much a younger generation thing?
yeah,
I
it's a
mean,
younger
it's
generation thing. Like if you think of the movie The Social Network about Zuckerberg, right? And
yeah, yeah.
Facebook, right? Well, the opening scene is his girlfriend rejects him. So what does he do? He goes forms Facebook because he got rejected by a woman, right? And then he went in to take out revenge on women. That's a youthful, you know, problem. And by the way, here's another thing to bring up, Sam.
Sure, sure, sure.
America first. The
Yeah.
problem with these America first people is it's not America first, it's America only. They don't understand global trade. They don't understand global. They think we could just stay on one side of the ocean and to hell with everybody else. They don't understand. And by the way, when Trump sent the bunker busters into Tehran to blow up their nuclear facility, that told everybody, don't mess with the United States. Don't mistake might for weakness. And that was a huge, huge, and it also put everybody on notice. Don't mess with Israel. There's going to be no changing in our relationship with Israel. Okay. Like a lot of the Netanyahu Trump stuff is good cop, bad cop stuff. You know, Trump
Mhm.
tries to be the good cop, Netanyahu's the bad cop.
Well, if
But
you
when
ask
Trump's
me, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
no,
No,
no, I was just
no.
gonna say when Trump bombed Tehran, that put everybody on the whole world on notice. It was a great move. It was a
Yeah.
great move.
In fact, I think that actually also translates to a message. Look,
Oh yeah,
play around. They were coming to a point where Xi Jinping was probably looking at the U.S. as being that Trump is all talk. You know,
yep,
so I think that was necessary, and and that's the way, and that's why people. I guess if you come to the world, there is an Asian sentiment, so they are pro-China to a certain extent. But I'm looking at things from a very objective, um, capitalist standpoint, and maybe Western educated, and you see the world through a lens where, as I said before a few times, where other country has there been has won world wars and given the country back to the people that lost? It's only America. Nobody else has ever done that. you know so
yeah.
yeah, so I this is, I agree with you, that's the other part. It's actually educating that portion of the coalition. If you were to ask me, them outright, Prof, is a bit of a concern to me. And that's where I find, when I look at this is where I think the Republican coalition miss a person like Charlie Kirk. And I can't find anyone within the coalition that can do that at this moment, which is basically tell the young people how things ought to be or what things are. I think Charlie played a great part in that, in providing that narrative for them.
100%. And what you notice happening now, so they're putting Charlie's wife out there, always accompanied now with JD Vance. I Vance Vance's to go forward in terms of being the next president is you'll see him out front with those the what is it what's Charlie Kirk's thing is
TPS
TPUSA or
USA,
whatever.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, Turning
turning
Point
point,
USA,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
He'll be he'll be the main guy out front until the 2028 election. She'll come out, she'll do her thing, always be a JD thing.
Mm.
Plus, this Fuentes guy is trying to co-opt these people, and it's not going to work. He's trying to gain a foothold because he hated Charlie Kirk, by the way. So
True.
he's
That
trying
that
to he's trying to co-opt that USA void that Kirk has left now, and so that's why him a little bit, but
Yeah, but you
um,
know what, Prof? just us talking it this way, actually on me, and I've been trying to think. You're about, if you want to argue on the policy with respect to Israel, be specific, right?
Yes.
Right. That's what I think. If you were to ask me, this is the problem with the side that is pro-Israel, especially, I was just listening to Shapiro and Mark Levine. It's just they need to really pull back a bit and be more like what you just said. Hey guys, be specific, and just don't label people. Be honest with you, this is how I would do it as a tactical messaging and actually educating. I think Charlie would have done that,
Yeah, I mean, Charlie Kirk had his problem with Israel too, but
he's very
like,
nuanced.
yes, 100%.
Yeah.
He's not ambiguous. He's not just going to throw it out there like, oh, we got to watch Israel or Israel's bad. I hate that. I hate no. I want specifics. If you got a problem with Israel, tell me what the specifics are.
Right.
Like Daryl will argue, well, every problem we've ever had, meaning the United States, it's always Israel that caused the problem. What? You're going to blame Israel for the Iraq war? Like, give me a break. It's just ridiculous.
Are you going to blame Israel for how China has controlled the minerals?
Right. China did Israel bring China into the what is it, the WTO or what? You know what I mean? Like, it's like, give me a break.
Not everything around it.
Yeah, no, it's just to me it's a phony narrative, and this, of course Netanyahu went hard after October 7th, but I they just had enough. Plus, forget, Israel doesn't do anything without the U.S. giving them the wink or the nod. You know what I mean? So it's so that's why I say it's good cop, bad cop.
Well, not only that, in my opinion, if you were to ask me, I pointed out this, said it was very telling how Trump had actually taken control of the narrative. Actually, he has. I have never seen, for example, I thought the image of him calling the Qatar prime minister, right, and handing the phone to Netanyahu was a great photo op for America. This is who's the boss here, So I think it's the problem within the Republican Party right now, as far as the coalition, is how do you manage this moving forward? Because you can't fracture your coalition and you can't lose people because of, they are immature. Shall we say that, for lack of a better word, right?
No, it's 100% correct.
Yeah,
it's 100% correct. The Zoran Mandami election, it tells you everything you need to know about the youth in America. Well, they don't know anything.
Well, my problem, if you ask me, I don't know how his belief systems are, because I think, it's his father. I think they were.
Yeah, but Zoran's, they have video of Zoran down Israel. He's, and then calling out the NYPD as the IDF and stuff like that. There are videos of him saying that. So he's
imagine
if
a Republican was, if he was a Republican candidate, can you imagine how that would have been blown up on mainstream media?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Listen, we're in very volatile times, Sam. What I said last night on Alan's show, I said what I would love to do with our people, including you, Sam, is a little, after show people, which we're getting over 40 people now. We can pull 10 heads together and write a platform for America. You know what I mean? Instead of because this is the problem with America now. We're a two-party system, right? But now both parties are being fractured, right? Progressives, liberals, moderates, conservatives, ultra right wing, MAGA, all of that stuff, right? Well, why don't our own party come up with our own platform that's very centrist, which deals with social issues properly, but focuses on the global trade issues and also our role in the world as a military superpower. That's what I would love to do.
Well, I think, that's one of the, the last time I was on, I was out by Mark to put my point is, I felt that I think this region is Asia Pacific region is a growing region that America should, apart because the ASEAN summit was there, Trump came over and whatnot, and I thought that actually the photo, not just I would say that in that just 2 days or 3 days he was here, the media coverage of America was excellent, and sort of like he flipped the narrative a bit for the region to be looking at America as an option, which has been very much left to China. And that is not, if you want to keep your growth going, and if you want to be able to actually still have this business, this economic supremacy that you have, right? Because for me, what I'm looking at when I look at China, my biggest concern is actually they have overproduced everything. So now what they have done is actually, because they've overproduced everything so cheaply, and yet their GDP per capita does not increase, they're trapped, and their consumptions are there. So that makes it even worse. So, and then what is happening then, then they export their problems to not just this region, but they went because of the initiative, the Belt and Road initiative,
Yep.
right?
Belt and Road, yep.
Yeah. So what you get actually, all these countries that got involved in it got into a debt trap. They're building infrastructure because third world economies, developing economies can be very corrupt. You know what I mean, right? So you throw money. At the end of the day, these countries end up dead, and unproductive infrastructure, because the Chinese need to export their their people, their resources, etc., because they can't consume, right? So I think the world is unstable in that sense. At the end of the day, when you look at it, right, only a smart superpower that we have had for so long must get its act together. That's basically the concern coming from, where I've been saying all the while. This is what we need to happen, which is why when I see how this Trump 2.0 administration came in and took the reign like nobody, I've never seen a cabinet work this way ever in my lifetime, right? It's only that's why I'm saying, I wish they had just said, okay, the result's gonna, right? It's gonna take some time. Messaging gotta be right. If he House and Senate, how are you gonna do you're gonna end up
he's a lame duck then. He's a lame duck then. He'll just veto everything, and
the next thing you're gonna
get he won't lose. He can lose the House.
And the next thing you find is that you're gonna have an impeachment hearing.
Yeah, that gets all it. See, then the American people will turn against that because that's boring and old. It's the same, and that's why we're divided. It's just listen. The people who are anti-Trump, they hate him. You see on our shows, they hate him. They don't give him credit for anything.
Yeah.
And he's been he's done absolutely nothing. Well, he just made all of these trade deals. It's a little peaceful out there because he's talked to the countries and told them to knock it off, but he gets credit for nothing. So I think his administration just better focus now on domestic stuff and get the American people feeling better. Get the media to when the numbers come out, show, hey, inflation's down, hiring is up, more, interest rates are down, prices of housing is coming down. Of course, fuel is down, and which is great. But, I don't know. I don't know if they're capable of doing that. Like I said, he's constantly on TV now calling affordability a hoax, and that's not gonna work. No, it's not a good message. So.
But I can see that if you ask me, interest rate down further, which will make housing more affordable. That is not happening. I don't know. But then I don't know when Powell is going to be replaced. So that's probably January, February next year that his term ends.
And by the yeah. But by the way, Sam, here's another problem, which should be part of the Republican messaging. Does anybody actually believe that if they give Trump or get rid of policies, right, by bringing in Democrats, that Democrats are going to fix things and make things better? No. No,
No.
no. The Democratic Party is not polling better than Trump. Trump's poll numbers are in underwater right now, and the Democrats are still polling under him.
Yeah.
So, you know, there might be a change. I don't think there'd be a change nationally, especially he's got time for these trade deals to finally sink in. But midterms could be a problem. Midterms
Hmm.
could be a very big problem for the Republicans.
You ask me if by May, June, things get better. I mean, all those investments, some of those investments that I see is real. The problem, deployment of capital, and then for work to start to kick off on construction and whatnot, right? Those take
Yeah,
time. You're looking at,
yeah,
at minimum 8 months, from the time they say to do something, you're looking at 8 months at least to get things moving. If that is, you get all the approvals done, right? So that's the biggest issue in terms of employment, because the government really can't do much from what Trump is already doing, you know?
yeah. And what's going to happen is whoever becomes president after Trump, let's just say for argument's sake, it's Gavin Newsom, right? Let's say the Democrats somehow. Newsom will reap the benefits of all of the deals that Trump made. So Newsom will be like, "Oh, look, we got all it. Look at how America's rebuilding." About, yeah, you didn't do it, Newsom. It was Trump who did it. The guys that the left kicked out or hated. He's the one who did it. So
Well, that's where I feel to be with you. I feel confident actually that those will be given. My only concern is actually whether it will come enough. It will happen within the Trump's term. So I think by the time his second year rolls in, end of his second year, the Americans will reap the benefit. But I'm just concerned that actually it will be too late for the midterms. That's all. So
yeah,
that's where I'm looking at from that
yeah,
standpoint.
yep,
Other than that, I mean, let's go back to this. Oh yeah, I want one other subject before we close out, maybe, right?
yep.
Be coming up as you said just now. Subsidy by the was being made as an issue for the federal shutdown. I've been looking at American healthcare and I just can't believe how messed up it is. I mean, really, it's almost like, I mean, I don't understand how the Republican can let Democrats get away with that when it's literally nicknamed Obamacare.
Yeah,
So when you talk about premium going up, we just point to the other side and say, look, that's your legislation. I don't care whether, I mean, it's you say it's Romney's plan or it's Obamacare, right?
yeah.
So the thing is, I think I'm with this, which is um Republicans need to come plan or how to
A
fix
hundred
healthcare,
percent,
right?
100%.
Yeah.
They don't. The Republicans won't go near it because they know it's such a mess and it's such a big deal to deal with that nobody's willing to step up and figure out something. As far as the Democrats go, it's no longer the Affordable Care Act, it's the Unaffordable Care Act, which which the Republicans were saying all along. Here's the difference between the Romney plan and Obamacare. In the Romney plan, Massachusetts, everybody had to be on the health insurance plan. Everybody. So in other words, everybody had to opt in. Under Obamacare, he tried to do that, but then the Supreme Court, because states sued, and the Supreme Court ruled that people don't, if they don't want to be in on Obamacare, they don't have to be. So once you don't have everybody in, now that affordability goes up, it becomes unaffordable, and you need the government to subsidize it. So um, it's a broken system, and I don't know who is going to come forward to try and fix it. Throwing money at it doesn't fix it.
Doesn't fix
I
it.
think for the Republicans, um, they don't know how to message on it, and they don't know how to fix it. They don't have a plan to fix it. For the Democrats, they just want to subsidize it and hope that nobody talks about it again. So it's
Well,
a bad, it's bad, it's
yeah.
bad,
I mean,
and it's
that's
a shame
always the.
because I always bring up Sam greatness. Like somebody has to step up to greatness, like a Trump, right? Which he will never do. And why don't you come together with a sensible healthcare plan for this country?
Well,
Why
I
don't you
think
do that?
this
And then you'll
problem
be
you.
considered, wow, we had Obamacare and that was a disaster. And looked at in 6 months, Trump. But nobody's gonna rise
Well,
to
here
greatness to do that.
I think if you ask me, the problem is more in the in Congress, and I don't know whether it is probably in Congress, because why? You're looking at the insurance lobby, you're looking at the big pharma, you're
Oh,
all
it's a
making money,
disaster. It's too many, yes, too many elements to deal with. That's why the Republicans never want to go near it.
right? So that's the biggest actually stumbling block that you have there in the I mean the in the corporate sector, which are making money off this, and they are the ones who are actually feeding the congressional, uh, you know,
Yeah, and they're the
both
ones that write
sides,
the laws.
both
Yeah, and
sides.
the lobbyists is the ones who will, no matter what healthcare plan comes out, it'll be the lobbyists who actually write the law because they got to make sure that, people make money. It's
Yeah,
not about healthcare, it's about making money.
yeah. I think it's just way too expensive in America. I think, you come down here, you'll be surprised at the quality
Yeah,
of healthcare that you get in Malaysia and Singapore, and the price that we pay, comparatively
yeah,
speaking. It just makes no sense to me. Not everybody needs to have I mean, you think about it, right? Not everybody needs to have critical care, right? But everything is almost um, is baked into the cost of it, right? So that's why the premium, the cost is so high, and then you've got the HMOs and then the insurance companies, and you got a ton load of bureaucracy. That's inflating all the costs 2 to 3 times more than what it should be. Easy,
yep.
I can tell you. Yeah.
It's
So
it's not an easy thing to fix.
yeah. So anyway, I think it's been a long conversation, my friend.
Yeah, I
I've
enjoyed it very much.
Thank you. So I'll see you. We'll close out for now. We'll see each
Yep,
other again. Yeah. Thank
I'll
you
see
so
you on the
much,
post
Prof.
show.
Thank you. See
Thank you for
you.
having me on.
Hey, thanks a lot. Thanks very much. Bye
All
bye.
right,
I'll see you
thanks, Sam.
later.
Take it easy.
Take
Okay,
it easy.
bye bye.
Okay. Bye.